In this video, we will take a look at the aggregation transformation and understand what it does, and take a look at the example of how to apply it to your datasets. So first things first, aggregation is Coupler's way to quickly summarize and get some key reports or insights built based on certain dimensions from your data source by performing operations like sum, average, count, count unique, and so on. As always, it's all no code, so once you pick your source view, you'll be then prompted to specify the dimensions you want to group the data by, as well as which metrics you want to work with, and what kind of operations you want to perform with them. I've already preloaded as an example, so let's take a look at a real case to better understand how this works. So in this example, I'm working with the top pages performance from Google Search Console. One of the things with Google Search Console is that you can only get data out broken down on a daily basis. So you cannot group it when you configure the data source, for example, by week, month, as you can with some other sources like Facebook ads or Google Analytics 4. So when we have a very large data set, if we want to send it to Looker Studio, for example, and start visualizing data there, the more rows of data we have, the slower it's going to be. So it's a good idea to first group or aggregate your data based on, let's say, weeks or months, and only then send that group data to Looker Studio and start building your reports. So the aggregation feature lets us do exactly that, and this is the use case we'll be taking a look at. So initially we have the dimension report date, which is the date only, or the day only, and then we use our formula-based feature to derive ourselves the week from that particular report date column, and then we do the same to get ourselves a month. We only get 500 rows for preview, so I only have just a few days worth of data here, but as we send it to Looker Studio, you will see that it's all properly aggregated. So once we have these dimensions that we need for a week and month, one thing I will do here is I will also change it back to report date like this. The reason I want to have this same name, because ultimately I will take weekly performance and monthly performance aggregated views, blend them, and send them to Looker Studio to build out charts with weekly and monthly groupings. So I'll hide this original column, and then over here, let's take a look at what the aggregation looks like. So if we look at the monthly performance view, the aggregation looks like this. We select the source, we specify the dimensions, in this case site URL, page report date, and then we perform certain operations on the metrics that we are interested in. And then we get this result, the dimensions, and then all of those metrics that we wanted, either sum or mix, max, and so on. And then we do add a couple of formula-based features, formula-based columns here, so performance CTR. And then also I'm adding this range column to then hard code the month value and week value in the weekly performance view, so I can use this as my filtering identifier once I have this data in Looker Studio. So weekly performance does the same, except for it now takes a different report date, the weekly one, and then I'm adding a range week. So then I use our append transformation, which stacks things one underneath another. And because I've added the range column and changed the dimension report date, I now have one cohesive data set over here that also gives me an identifier to work with once I have this data stacked. Next step would be to go to the destinations, configure kind of the entire flow, make sure the date range filter is selected properly, and then generate the data source. I've already done all of that, so let's take a look at Looker Studio and the end result. So this is the data source where we have all of this information, and then once I create a report out of it, I have a blank canvas to work with, and I've added a couple of super simple charts where you can see that I'm using the aggregation source, and then I'm looking at the report date, and I have applied a filter that I've added. So this week and month filters are essentially filtering out the entire data set based on that column that we've added. And in this chart, I'm only looking at the range where it equals to week, and here I'm looking at a range that equals to month. And this allows me to send a smaller data set here make my visualizations a bit faster, especially if I wanted to adjust the reporting periods and so on. It's going to take a few seconds, but not as long as if I had the entire daily breakdown and then applied aggregations on a date range directly here. So this is one of the, let's say, more common use cases for the aggregation. Obviously, there's a lot more that you can do with it, depending on what you're trying to accomplish, but hopefully this gives you a good idea what aggregation is, how to work with it, and what kind of things you can accomplish. Don't forget to click on the read more if you want to take a deeper dive into what this functionality does. And for any questions, don't hesitate to get in touch with our team. We'll be happy to help.